I would say exercise is probably the biggest one that I'd recommend, which I know that you're a big fan of. But like in general, like there could even be variations of exercise. It could be going for a walk, like you go to the gym, right? Maybe it's going for a walk. Maybe it's going to your friends and having dinner together, and then having a chat together and just like talking. So talking is really like sharing frustrations, sharing concerns, sharing struggles is really vital in PA school, especially your peers that are going through the same thing. You know, it's worth sharing with like your close friends that aren't in, like that aren't in PA school as well. But there's something that a sense of understanding that only people that are in PA school at that current moment and going through rotations can really get. And so that I remember, yes, lean into that and continue finding a way to cope with the stress, for sure, like a good outlet, whatever that is for you. Okay. Don't let problems fester is the next one. I had a situation because, you know, life is busy during PA school and clinical year. There was an issue with my sink, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna really worry too much about it, right? And then, you know, fast forward like a week, I'm like, oh, this is a big problem now. So I would say, don't let problems fester, even in your personal life, your home, your living situation, like whatever it is. I would prioritize them too, in a way. I know that sounds, you know, easier said than done, but just be mindful of things that aren't PA school related, that those are still, those are important too, to make time for. Yeah. So my lesson in that was like, okay, there's a problem with the sink. Let's bring this up to the landlord right away, rather than, I think it's going to get better on its own, or let me just sit on this. Let me study for this next exam. Just like, if there's a problem, just like do it, you know? Okay. Nutrition. Okay. So your rotations, right, are going to be a different schedule, right? And so there are times when eating is not going to be convenient, and you just have to do your absolute best to keep your nutrition on point. If you don't eat, if you don't hydrate, right, you're going to feel tired. You're going to not think as well. You're I would say those are the two biggest things. Can't think of a third one. And so I would have little snacks in my pockets, right? And just kind of, I would be strategic about, okay, the times that I would need to eat to function well. You know, some people can go a long stretch without eating, but sometimes having that long stretch without eating, which could be, I don't know, like a very long time for whoever, and then it can lead to eating a lot, like once you have the opportunity. So just maintaining a kind of, if this is a spectrum of like, I'm super full, and a spectrum of like, I'm super hungry, like just be somewhere in the middle, so that you don't get to the point of like, oh my God, I'm so hungry. And then you have the opportunity and you're like, what's happening, you know? So, yeah. And that takes, I remember, like, for instance, for an example, like my ortho rotation, right? Like you're going to be in surgery for like, sometimes it's really unpredictable, but when you have that time to eat, like, okay, like you like focus on eating, right? Or focus on recovering or resting until your next surgery. And yeah, it's definitely a mindset thing. Like I remember I had one surgery that it started later in the afternoon and then it ended at midnight. That was an intense day, and just, you know, you're just in there. And so know, like, hey, that things happen. And so had I not eaten before that surgery, like I know, like, I'm a student, right? So I can leave whenever I want. Technically, I'm not doing the surgery, but still, like, you're there to learn, to do the things, right? And so eat strategically is my tip. Okay. My next one is checking in with yourself. So yeah. So it's going to be stressful, right? And there's going to be moments where it's going to be so fast. And it's still important to make time to see, okay, how are you doing with things? Like, how are you doing with your sleep? How are you doing inside? You know, like, just like your mental state. And so some days you might set out to study, 7-8 hours on the weekend, right? But you might realize that morning you're like, hey, I need to take some time off. Like, it could be like an hour or two to just, veer off from the plan for a little bit, and just definitely listen to yourself. Just checking in with your body, how you're feeling, I think is important. You don't want to just continue being a learning machine, right? And just mindlessly, like, just doing all the things. So I think checking in with yourself is helpful to prevent burnout. Before you start your clinicals, I would say reassessing your priorities and know that it's like PA school, right? But the second chapter. And so just reassess your priorities, like what's important right now. I almost see it like as a pie percentage of like, okay, like studying is going to be taking up a different portion of your time, right? Because now there's going to be driving, to your rotation, networking, as well. And it's just, it's sort of a different ball game. And so just kind of reassessing where you're at right now, what's important. And I would say for me, during that time is like learning as much as you can of what like the real life applications are as a PA, and preparing for the pants in a way, and just spending some time on that as well, a little bit each time. Okay, the next piece of advice is accepting help and knowing when to ask for it, okay? There are gonna be struggles, there's gonna be challenges, and from personal experience, sometimes it's hard to know, like, hey, I might need some help. Either your peers asking for help with like study guides, asking for help on this concept, asking for, guidance with the counselor or your professors, right? And just knowing like if you're struggling, like, or even your friends from back home, like, don't be afraid to just ask. Not when the house is on fire. Like, ask when it's like, okay, there's a little bit of a slow ember. Like, it might be nice to like prophylactically, or what's another word? Like, just anticipate that, right? And just be like, oh, like, this could be a potential barrier. Like, maybe I should do something about it, right? Like the sink. Okay. This one is more like a social thing. I don't know what your relationship status is, but I remember that like everyone was in a relationship, and so in PA school, right? And also just, so I don't like it. It's just know, like, it's okay. Like, don't worry about it that people are in a relationship, and maybe if you're not, like, you're doing your own thing, right? You have your own goals and your own priorities. I just remember like that was a big observation, and just being like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, people are happy and doing their thing. Okay. The other things, we're wrapping up. So this is more mindset. Okay. I would look at each rotation as its own new challenge, right? Because it's like, okay, I'm going to OBGYN, like, this is OBGYN time. All right, I'm doing surgery, like, this is surgery. Like, what is it like to be a surgeon? So it's like you're taking off a hat, and then you're taking off your PA school didactic your hat student, and you're like putting on the hat of like, you're like being a PA now. You know what I mean? Like, And so like own that,